Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much to the band for leading us in worship. It was so beautiful to sing with you, to experience the way God is at work in the midst of you as a family. It's a beautiful thing together as a church. I love that God at His most core, if you peel back all the layers of who God is and you get right to the center of God, He's Father. And He loves it when His children gather in His midst. And so it's a privilege to be with you in your family. My name is Luke, as Tom said. I come to you from Cape Town. And it's a privilege to be in your midst. It's been a great time in your community. I bring you greetings from our church, Common Ground South Peninsula, as well as from my family. I'm married to Lauren. See that beautiful woman on the screen on the right there. That's my wife, Lauren. We've been married for 16 years. That's my eldest son, Ben, on the left there. Ben is going to be 14 this year. Bethany is 12 on the right, and Jack is 9, and I miss them terribly, but they're beautiful little children, and they are praying for us today as we meet. They're also praying for me for another reason. I'll tell you about it in a second. I've been here since Tuesday, and it's been a great window into life in North Carolina. I mean, we've gone to sun and surf and storms as well. Yesterday, I was driving with Donnie after breakfast at a diner, and it was a normal Saturday, going to be laid back, until we heard about a tree that had fallen down on someone's house. I mean, a great big tree. We spent 2 hours with chainsaws carrying and chopping up a tree as we took it off of someone's roof, and I got all scraped up. 2 hours. I'm talking farmer's carry. I'm talking fireman's carry. I was up close and personal with that tree. And about an hour and a half in, Donnie says to me, "Luke, do you know those vines up the side of that tree?" I said, "Yeah, well, I mean, it's just, yeah, whatever, it's vines, you know." He says, "Have you heard of poison ivy?" I said, "I've heard about that, but we don't really get that in South Africa." He said, well, those vines you've been carrying and rubbing up against all day, that's poison ivy." I said, "Donnie, why didn't you tell me?" He said, "Luke, we couldn't afford to be without the help." So if while I'm speaking, start, coming out and all sorts of things, I don't know, this is new to me, you let me know, and hopefully we're all going to be okay. Anyway, it's been a privilege to be with you. You live in a beautiful part of the world, and you're a special people. And I was here 6 or 7 years ago across the road, and now I'm here now, and I'm hearing stories of where you might be the next time I get to be in this place, if the Lord wills. You are part of a beautiful thing. I want you to know that. And I can see the smile and the goodness of God all over you. I hope you don't ever take it for granted. This is a special thing you're a part of. Anyway, I want to share with you a message today, and I've entitled my message with a question. Who are you becoming? Who are you becoming? Every single one of us is becoming someone. Today will add up with tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. You are on a trajectory to become someone in the future. And I want to talk to you about who that is and who that can be. Let me start by telling you a story about a man named Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Have you heard his name maybe? Bonhoeffer was a German Christian around the time of Nazi Germany, when Hitler was trying to build Germany into this great mighty empire of the Third Reich. And Bonhoeffer, in contrast to Hitler, was a Christian pastor, and he took seriously his role in doing something for God in his generation in a very difficult time in Germany. And Bonhoeffer was given a piece of land, kind of in obscurity in rural area in Germany, and he was given a piece of land to set up a Bible training college to train up pastors. And so, you can imagine, Nazi Germany, all of this going on, and this Bible college in the middle of nowhere. And one day, Bonhoeffer's friend, a family friend, comes out to visit him, because Dietrich was from a family of nobility. They were elite, they were wealthy. And this family friend comes out to visit him at his Bible college. And he says to him, "Dietrich, you are a noble man. You are from a family of means. You're an elite family. This kind of zealous followership of Jesus, Dietrich, I think you've got carried away. It's unbecoming of someone from such a noble family. And what's worse, you could get yourself in some real trouble with Hitler. So stop this nonsense. Come back with me and let's carry on." Things got a little bit awkward. And Dietrich said to his friend, "Come with me." He put him in a boat, and they rowed across a little lake to the foot of a hill, and they walked up the hill together. And Dietrich stood on the top of the hill with his mate, and he said, "Can you look down there?" And he looked down there, and you saw, this is the pastor's training college. And on the other side of the hill, he looked down, and here was this Nazi Air Force base where Hitler was training up his fighter pilots and his men who would fight and embody what he believed and extend his doctrine all over the world. And Dietrich pointed to this college, and he said, you see this college? Do you see the intensity with which they are forming people? Do you see the way they are training people in the ways of Hitler? And then he pointed to this pastor's college over here, and he said, this has to be stronger than that. This has to be stronger than this. We have to form people better. We have to train people better. This has to be stronger than that. And he looked at his mate and he said, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep doing what I do. And then they walked down the hill, they got in the boat. Neither of them said a word for the rest of the trip, and his mate disappeared. I want to say to you that this in here has to be stronger than that out there. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. Who are you becoming? Who are you becoming? Take a look with me at where Paul wrote about this to the church in Rome. Romans chapter 12, verse 1 and 2. And this is what Paul said to the church in Rome. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your spiritual act of worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good and pleasing and perfect will. It's a short scripture. Can we read it again together? Cool. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Brilliant. Paul says in view of God's mercies. In other words, he's been working for 11 chapters in the book of Romans to come to chapter 12, and he looks back in view of God's mercies. Paul has been unpacking the gospel, and the church has understood the wonder of the gospel, how the church has been saved by God's mercy. They did nothing to deserve it, and God has freely saved them in his mercy. Have you understood that? Do you know that everything good in your life comes to you through the grace and the mercy of God? I mean, you did nothing to deserve it. I want you to imagine with me that you were a bank robber. All of us have got our junk, right? All of us have got our sin. I don't know what yours is, but let's just imagine yours was you were a bank robber. Can you do that with me? Imagine you're a bank robber. You just robbed a bank. You've come out with the money, and the cops are after you. And so you run and you run and you run down that street, and the cops are after you, and you duck around a corner, and then you duck around another one, and as you get there, the cops are still chasing after you, but you come to the front of what is the largest retail store in America? Walmart. Okay. You get to a Walmart store, and you duck into the store, and as you get into the store, two things happen. Number one, the cops keep running past, and you get away. And number two, the doors close in Walmart. Balloons fall from the sky. Streamers are shot. The speakers play. And they say, congratulations, you are our 1 millionth customer. You have won $1 million. All you were trying to do was just get away. In the process, your life was changed. You did nothing you were a bank robber. You did nothing to deserve it. And now you live a life that you did nothing to earn. Except what I forgot to tell you there was as you got to the door, your twin brother or twin sister was waiting for you. He saw you, he saw the look of distress on your face, and he knew something was up. So he took his cap off his head and he put it on yours, and he took yours and he put on him. He took off his shirt and he put on you, and he put your shirt on him. And he took your clothes and he pushed you through the door, and they closed. And as he ran, the cops took him. And he was locked up in the back of a police van to serve your sentence. And you walked through those doors and you inherited what was meant for him. This is the grace of God, friends. You did nothing to deserve it. It's the gospel of Jesus. When you understand that, when you understand His free grace, in fact, in spite of all that I am, God welcomes me, and that I get to sing these words we sang today and worship and be part of the family of God. It's scandalous. If you knew me, if you knew the life I'd lived, if you knew the things that I thought, the things that I'd done, that I would be able to stand in the family of God and worship Jesus. It is ludicrous. It is all by the mercy and grace of God. Now, when you understand the gospel, Paul says, what is the next thing you do? You offer your body as a living sacrifice. God, all that I am is yours. Every single part of me, every cell, every thought, every desire, my future is yours. I'm a living sacrifice. Tracking with me so far? Yeah. Okay. What does that look like? Well, Paul says, what does it look like to offer your body as a living sacrifice? Do not be conformed to the pattern and shape of this world, but be transformed, be renewed. Don't think anymore like a bank robber, think like Christ. To the point where your will, he said there, becomes the same as God's good and pleasing and perfect will. Where your heart, once a sinner, now begins to beat for the same things as Christ's heart. That my longings match his longings, that my plans match his plans, that my will matches his plan. Really, the goal here is very, very simple. If we sum up this passage, is to not be conformed to the shape of this world, but to be transformed into Christ-likeness. This is the great goal for your life. And so the big idea for today's message is this: the formation of Christ in our lives has to be stronger than culture's shaping of our lives. The formation of Christ in your life and my life has to be stronger than culture's shaping of our lives, or we will lose. We will lose our call. We will lose our distinction. We will lose our influence. We will cease to be light. We will cease to be hope. We will cease to push back darkness. And instead, darkness will envelop us. This has to be stronger than that. So who do you want to become? Think about it for yourself. Who or what are you longing to become? The great goal of the Christian life is to become like Christ. Paul, writing to other churches, shared the same thing. He wrote to the church in Corinth in 2 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 18, and this is what he said to them: "And the Lord, who is Spirit, makes us more and more like him as we are changed into his glorious image." What's God's work in your life? He's transforming you day by day, more and more becoming like Christ. He wrote to the church in Ephesus. He said it a different way. Chapter 4 and verse 17. "Now this I say and testify in the Lord, that you must no longer walk the way of the Gentiles. Do not be conformed to the ways of this world." Another way of saying it. "Assuming that you've heard about him and were taught in him as the truth is in Jesus, to put off your old self and be renewed in the spirit of your minds, and to put on the new self." You're not conformed, but you're transformed into Christ-likeness, created after the likeness of God in true righteousness and holiness. I'm trying to get us to see here that the main point of your life as a Christ follower is to become more and more like Jesus. That's what he's busy with in your day, in your week. Whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whether you're black, whether you're white, whether you're a doctor or a dentist or a dermatologist, or what's another career with a D? A what? A ditch digger. A ditch digger. Brilliant. That was unbelievable. All that stuff is semantics. The great goal of your life is that Jesus wants to transform you into the likeness with him, which is an extraordinary thing when you think of who you are and how you've lived and where you come from, isn't it? Certainly is in my life. That's what he's working. And Paul's describing to us what that looks like. If the great goal of your life is becoming like Christ, what you've got to realize, and I want to share with you two things today. Number one, this: that our culture is not neutral. Our culture is not neutral. Paul says, do not be conformed to the pattern of this world. Why did he have to say that? Because this world is trying to conform you to its pattern, right? He's got to say, do not be conformed to the pattern of this world. We've got to see this. Paul is assuming a default position in our city's culture. Paul is assuming a conformity, that there is a pressure on your life, much like the winds that blow here. What are the prevailing winds? What's the direction that blows here where you live? Southwest. Where I live in South Africa, it is southeast. Southeast, every day, relentlessly, the southeaster blows through spring and summer. So much so that the pine trees grow like this. Do you have trees that grow like this here? That's what happens. Why? Because culture is constantly exerting itself on your, the winds are constantly blowing on the trees, shaping them. The same way culture is shaping your life. And Paul is saying, step out of conformity into transformity. Now, I know that's not a word, but preachers love things that rhyme. So step out of conformity into transformity. You live in a world that is constantly, relentlessly shaping your life. Your culture is incredibly skillful and subtle at subtly shaping you into a person. Your rhythms of life, your family practices, your networks, your city, your media, your social media, your entertainment, your news networks, all of these things are shaping forces in your life. When Paul wrote these words to the Romans all those years ago, he was writing to a people who were in the city of Rome. They were being formed into Romans. Rome was a deliberate system that was engineered to coach and shape people into a particular way of life. Roman society leveraged customs, stories, history, myths, theater, art. All of these things were designed to push a narrative, a worldview of this is what the good life looks like. This is what you should long for. This is what life should be like. And it would shape what Romans thought was good and noble and worthy of living their lives. So Paul understood this. He recognized culture is not neutral. Neither is your culture. Our culture, its ethics, its stories, its art, its entertainment, its news, its series, its media, its social media, its practices, all of these things are shaping our lives every single day. They shape what you believe is normal. Shapes what you believe is right, shapes what you believe is true. We see it in our media, we see it in our series, we see it in our feeds. It becomes normalized. And it shapes what you think is good and noble and true. So the first step is recognizing that culture is a shaping force in your life. The first mistake we make when it comes to discipleship is thinking that we're just blank canvases for Jesus to shape. Friends, you're not. You are the result of years and years and years of culture shaping and forming who you are. Every single one of us has, in a sense, been deformed away from Christ-likeness into the shape of our culture. We love to say, this is who I am because God made me this way. But it's not entirely true, is it? And so the first thing I want us to see is that culture is forming us. I want to take the gloves off in a sense, because culture is not playing fair. When Paul says, do not be conformed to this world, his starting point is realize your city is shaping your life. Your culture is forming how you think, what you give yourself to, what you don't give yourself to, how you think about yourself, how you think about your church, how you think about others, how you think about God. All of these things are shaping in your life. And here's the thing. Do you want to know what culture's secret power is? Because you're living in it every single day, we've become numb to its shaping power on our lives. You don't wake up and think, whoa, gee, that was a sharp one from our culture. You don't. It just feels like the day before, and the day before, and the day before. David Foster Wallace, the late atheist, sort of philosopher, thinker, he gave a university address one day to a group of students. And the story goes like this. There was an older goldfish was swimming along in a goldfish bowl one day, and he came across two young goldfish. And he said to the two young goldfish, how's it, boys? How's the water? How's the water? Sorry. I realize South Africans, we don't say T very well. We say D. Hey, how's the water? How's the water, he says. At which point the one young goldfish looked to the other young goldfish, pulled a strange face, and swam away. And after a while, the one goldfish said to the other one, what the heck is water? The idea being, it's all they had known. They've been in it so much that they were oblivious to its presence in their lives. That's how our culture works. We don't feel its molding fingers. I mean, I know I sound a little bit like a conspiracy theorist this morning. I'm aware of that, but I'm not. I want us to see this is what is happening in our lives. Just think about your entertainment. John Mark Comer said it so well. He said this: the ability to shape the preferences of others and the ability to attract. Hollywood has done more to change our mores around sex, divorce, adultery, vulgar speech, and consumerism than most anything, simply by making movies that are fun to watch. I found myself watching this strange movie. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I'm not recommending it. But it was a man who was away from home on business, and he was going through a bit of a thing with his wife, an issue, and she was a bit angry, and he was away on business, but he was unhappy. And along comes this female work colleague into his life. And the movie is told in such a way that he's so unhappy, and he deserves to be happy. He should be living his best life. And she's lovely. And eventually, you're watching this movie, and you find yourself hoping that they get together. I think to myself, whoa, what is happening here to me? It's subtly, you don't realize it. It's shaping in your life, in my life. Little by little, our culture is shaping us. I know this is not rocket science I'm bringing to you. But just follow Paul's train of thought. In view of God's mercies, you were saved. He reached down, He rescued you. In spite of who you are, by grace He has saved you. Therefore, present your life to God as a living sacrifice. The greatest goal of your life is becoming more like Christ. But you have to be mindful of two things. Number one, culture is not neutral. It is relentlessly shaping your life. And the second one, if you are going to become like Christ, you need to deliberately order your life so as to reject those aspects of our culture that don't fit with God and to see Christ positively formed in you. There's negative aspects we reject, and there's positive aspects of seeing Christ formed in us we embrace. So our formation has to be both countercultural as well as Christ forming. Do not be conformed to this world, but rather be transformed. Formation must counter culture's force in our lives. This is where Paul spoke of putting off the old self. We put off the old self. There are parts of you where culture has snuck into your heart, into your thinking, into your desiring, that need to be put off. So we need to ask ourselves, where has my understanding of other people, where is my understanding of my possessions, where is my understanding of myself been deformed by our culture? What does it look like to understand others, to understand Christ, to understand myself, my time, my talents, my treasure, in light of Christ? I'm not saying everything in our culture is bad. I'm not. But there certainly are some things we need to cut with. How do we do that? Well, we don't do it self-righteously or arrogantly. We don't do it violently or angrily, but rather graciously, wisely, but decisively. We need to reject some things. And the second thing is we need to positively be seeing Christ formed in us. Paul said it in 2 Corinthians 3:18, more and more we're transformed to become like Him as we're changed into His glorious image. We're not just trying to become opposite than our culture. We're not just in reaction to. We need to be partially in reaction to. We need to be suspicious. I'm not conspiracy theorist suspicious, but just sensibly suspicious of where our culture is shaping our lives. But that's not the great goal. The great goal is not being opposite to our culture. The great goal is being conformed to the likeness of Jesus. Just mindful of our culture as well. Okay, I've just been trying to lay some groundwork here so that I can hopefully apply this to our lives. So what does this mean for us? Are you tracked with me so far? Very simple, hopefully relevant in North Carolina as much as it's relevant in Cape Town as well. What does this mean for our lives? Well, I think we need to start to learn as Christ followers to ask another question. We're very good at asking the moral question. Is it right or wrong to do this thing or not? That's the moral question. I want to encourage us to go north of that to ask this question. How is this forming me? If I do this thing, is it going to make me more or less like Jesus? Not just is it right or wrong, but who am I becoming by this habit or this practice? Because like it or not, your habits and your practices are shaping your life. Your future you is the product of the habits, your daily practices, weekly practices in your life. You become the product of your habits. So are your habits and practices making you more like Christ or more like our culture? Because your systems are perfectly designed to get the results that you're currently getting. And I just want to, you wake up tomorrow morning, what does your life look like? How are you going to deliberately see Christ formed in you? Can I pick 2 examples where I think we can see this applied? Can I get under your skin a little bit? We okay? So let's talk sport. Let's talk football. Are you sure I can get under your skin a little bit? Let's say you spend 30 hours a week binge watching football. I mean, let's just say hypothetically. I'm sure there's no one here. Maybe, I don't know. Now, I'm not saying, hey, is it right or wrong? I'm just saying that if you spend 30 hours every week watching football, and you do that every week of your life over the next however many years, are you becoming more like Christ or more like our culture? I'm not saying it's right or wrong, please. And I'm not saying that you mustn't watch it. I'm trying to get you to start to think about your life and what you're giving yourself to. Because you're probably raised that way, think that way. It's all we do. You don't feel it. It's the water on your life. And I just want to try and kind of get under the water and go, hey guys, let's just look at our lives and ask, am I becoming more like Christ or am I becoming more like everybody else? We need to start to look at our life through the formative lens. Not just is it good or bad, but how is this practice forming me? Maybe you're a single person and today you're a bit alone, so you go back to your room and you just binge watch, some series on Netflix every day. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm saying if you do that every day of your life, are you becoming more like Christ or more like our culture? We live in an age where there is a war going on for your attention. It wasn't the same thing when Moses was growing up or Jesus was growing up or Paul was alive. There is a war going on for your attention. One of the most sought after commodities on the planet is your attention. That's why most of the apps that you download on your phone are free. It's because you're not the client. You're the product. They get their money when they sell your attention to someone else because you watch their ad. I know it sounds a little bit conspiracy theory, but it's true. That's the way these things work. Either they're trying to get you to subscribe by paying money, or they're trying to sell your attention and get money from somebody else. And the way they do is they capture your attention with some sort of headline that's gripping. It must either make you angry, must either make you anxious, or it must make you aroused. If it can get you angry, anxious, or aroused, they can hold your attention. If they can hold your attention long enough, they'll show you adverts. If they can show you something like that, then they can sell your attention and they can get money from someone else. There's a war going on for your attention. We look at sport. How about this one? Are there any news junkies here? You just love watching the news all the time. No one here. Just think about news in our age. You know that 100 years ago, probably heard news every month, maybe, right? 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there used to be a Sunday newspaper that used to come out where I lived. You guys ever get we used to get the Sunday Times. Like a Sunday was the newspaper that would come out, right? You had to wait a whole week to discover the news that was going on, Now, the news cycle is hourly updated. And you know what? Every hour, the news is breaking news. It's breaking news. It's just, How much news can be break every hour? There's more break. This happens too, yeah? Happens in America too, right? So how do you find news that's always breaking every hour? Well, you've got to go wider than your own community. You've got to suddenly learn about the thing that happened in Portland, maybe the kidnapping or the shooting in New York or the plane crash in the Middle East or this that happened somewhere there. And so you're constantly bombarded with information about things that make you feel angry or anxious or whatever it is, far away where you can do nothing about it. It can feel overwhelming at times, can't it? You can get so overwhelmed with all the news that's happening out there that you can become totally blind to the stuff that's happening in your own back garden. in your own community. And we end up paralyzed, constantly exposed to news that's out there and then doing nothing about it because we're overwhelmed. I'm not saying is it right or wrong to watch the news. That's not what I'm saying. But what happens when you're constantly exposed to things you can do nothing about? Eventually you start to feel so overwhelmed that you're blind to the causes and the needs in your own community. That forms you as a person. You happy I'm not making moral statements? I'm just asking you to think through these things that we just inherit from our culture, that we take for granted as part of life, but they actually shape you as a person. And the great goal of your life is becoming more like Christ. So 2 aspects of formation: getting Jesus in and getting culture out. I had the privilege of being in the UK last year in Bournemouth. And while I was in the UK, I went to London. And in London, there is one of the most expensive pieces of property in the world is Leicester Square. I don't know if you've heard of Leicester Square, but there is a shop in Leicester Square. It's so expensive, the property there. It's the M&M store. You guys know M&Ms? There are 4 stories of M&Ms in the M&M store, right? There's the ground level, another level, another level. There is wall-to-wall M&Ms. There are yellow M&Ms, blue M&Ms, red M&Ms. There's fudge M&Ms, peanut M&Ms, not peanut butter M&Ms, by the way, because they are only produced in America because of the type of peanut butter that you guys make. They will not risk making it in any other continent. And so you guys are the peanut butter M&M snobs, by the way. Anyway, every kind of M&M you can imagine, all over, 3 stories. And then they give me this little bowl like this tiny little cup that I've got 3 hungry children for M&Ms back home in South Africa. And I've got to decide in all of this M&Ms what I'm going to put in my cup, right? So I go, I think a little bit of this. I was so discerning about what I put into that. I wonder if your mind, your heart is like this cup of M&Ms. And culture is just constantly throwing M&Ms at you. And I'm just trying to make a case for us sitting down and going, no, this guy does not belong in here. We take off, we put off these parts. And actually, this is what I want in here. I want you to think of your day. I want you to think of your week. I want you to think of your month and think, how am I arranging my days and my weeks so as to become more like Christ in a culture that is not neutral? Make sense? Last application. Let's pick one ideology in our culture and show you how you are already becoming more like Christ in what you do as a church. So, maybe you've heard this before. More than any generation before us on the planet, individualism and self-fulfillment are the ideology of our culture. Individualism. Life is about building project self. I must follow my heart. Life is about my life, my career, my progress, my family, my dreams. I must do what makes me happy. Follow your heart. Hey? Pursue your dream. You've heard this before as well, hey? You have. Hey, this is true. This is where I live. It's also the same here. Increasingly, you are told your life is about you in our culture. Even in church, we can commit to church, well, as long as it suits me, as long as I'm getting something out of it. I do church on my terms, and yet we worship a Savior who says, greater love is no man than this, than that he laid down his own life for his friends. He says, deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me. Yeah. The greatest of all is to become the servant of all. Every one of these cut with individualism and personal fulfillment. So, if everything in you cries, don't commit. Keep your options open. Hold something back to keep for yourself. And Christ says, lay it all down, give it away, serve others. How do you count? You see, so you recognize culture's formation. You've recognized it now. You can see it. Now you've got to counterform it. How do you bend yourself away from culture's push to follow your dreams, follow your heart, be true to yourself, discover your truth and follow your truth, right? Rather, Jesus says, lay down your life in service of others. Jesus did this. And so what do you need to do? You need to commit yourself to other people. Oh, commitment, responsibility. Oh, these are like swear words in our culture, aren't they? Embrace responsibility. Tie yourself to other people. Oh, we're allergic to it today. How do we become more like Jesus if we can't? I mean, Jesus committed himself to people. Jesus emptied himself, laid his life down for others. Well, we want to keep our options open. So you've got to deliberately go against that. Jesus committed himself to others who were needier than him, to people who let him down. They cost him effort, they cost him energy, and he loved them, and he stuck with them, and he forgave them, and he did it again and again and again. Why is this so important? Because you need to be committed to a community even when you don't feel like you want to. If you're going to become like someone who committed himself to other people and poured his life out to them, you need to be committed to people who irritate you. You do. I mean, think how many times the disciples irritated Jesus. You want to become like Jesus? Well, you need to commit yourself to some people who irritate you. Some people who are needier than you. I mean, for Jesus, that was everybody. You need to be committed to some people who are poorer than you. And not just those in your employ. Because if you want to become like somebody who gave up his life in love and service of others, you need people around you who need more than you so you can love and serve them. And this is critical in a culture that's saying, no, you just do you. Forget about everybody else. Be true to yourself. We need this. The poor, the needy, the irritating, they are a gift to you if the great goal of your life is becoming like Christ. I can see your heads nodding. You're tracking with me here. So let's look at some practices. We'll look at 4 things quickly as we land that you are already doing, hopefully, in combating this rampant individualization and self-fulfillment culture. Are you ready? Number 1, tomorrow morning when you wake up, you will be faced with a choice. You will either pick up this or you will pick up this. Do you know what this is? Huh? This is the Bible and Jesus and seeking him together, and this is One Harbor's own version of doing that, hey? I mean, we haven't got something like this in South Africa. Ryan Marshall gave this to me. I cannot believe that you have this. Have you guys all got one of these? This is extraordinary. This is your church's daily reading plan. Your alarm goes off. You're going to reach for this. This thing will shout for you. There'll be big red notifications, hey? It'll make you feel like if you don't look at it, you are missing out on life. You ever feel like that? I want to encourage you, pick this up instead. Put this first. Pick up your scriptures and read the scriptures. Number 1. So, number 1, solitude. Get with Jesus in solitude. Are we okay? Number 2. Are you ready for this? Oh, here it comes. Serve one another. Serve one another. Serve the needy in ministry. So I saw, Ben, when you stood up here, you held up a Connect card somewhere. Have you still got that? Can I steal that thing? Sorry, just looking for a prop here. On here, I saw here, you put your name, your surname. Oh, that's hard because then they can follow me. Then I'm kind of committed, right? When you write your name on something, it feels super official, right? You can say, I'm new. You can say, I want to follow Jesus. You can say, I want to serve. That's the one I want to point you to. Hospitality, kids, etc. In different ways you can serve. Why is this so important? Well, if your culture is saying to you, no, you just do you. Do what makes you feel good. No, follow your heart. That's culture forming you. And you want to reject that and you want to say, I want to become like Christ. What does Christ do? Christ gave his life up in love and service of others. Who do you want to become like? Well, sign up and serve. Just by serving. I know it's just ticking a box and pitching up. But those simple acts and habits over time form you. In a world that's increasingly saying, what's in it for me? You're saying, how do I serve other people? Over time, you're becoming more like Christ. Solitude, service. Number 3. Are you ready? I'm going to say join a small group, but I mean join a community group. But solitude, service, small group. It's the S's I'm after. Preachers love alliteration, right? Join a community group. But here's the thing. I'm going to tell you how to do this. There's a subtle difference in how you join this community group, right? You're not allowed to join the community group for what you're going to learn, for what you're going to get, for the courses you might do, for the discussions you might have. All of that is just bonus, right? You join the community group with one goal. Are you ready for it? One goal. You say, every week I'm going to ask myself, how do I love and serve and encourage these other people towards Christ-likeness? Everything else is bonus. Not like, what am I going to learn? Oh, maybe I'll get some cool work contacts. We're going to discover some cool theological truths I never knew. All of that stuff you forget. That's just bonus. But you said yourself, I'm joining this community group, and every week I'm going to ask myself this question. How do I love and serve and encourage these people towards Christ-likeness? Because in a world that's telling you, do it for what's in it for you, you're wanting to become like somebody who gave his life up in love and in service of others. Jesus had 12 disciples. They irritated him. They cost him. They drove him. It was hard at times. But he did it. Do you want to become like Christ? Join a community group with the sole goal of saying, how do I help these people become more like Jesus? And you will be emptying yourself. You will be giving up your rights. Does that remind you of anybody who emptied himself, who gave up his rights? That older brother who said, here, take my cap. Here, take my shirt. Put my life on you. I give up my rights as I take your life on me. And the last one, number 4, again, this is not rocket science. Prioritize Sundays in worship. Sundays in worship in your spiritual family. We've got solitude, we've got serving, we've got small groups, and now we've got Sundays. Don't engage with the church on the basis of your preferences. Don't engage with the church on the basis of your preferences. Our culture is going to say, no, you decide. Do it on your terms. What if something better comes up on a Sunday? What if the surf is firing? You pitch up in church on a Sunday. Why? Not because I have to, because the preacher said I must, because God's going to smile at me if I... No, you do it because you want to love and serve these people. You bring your gift. You bring your voice. I love the sound volume in this church. I love that I can hear you sing when you open your mouth. I'll never forget the Sunday I stood in church next to my neighbor. She had been married for 56 years to her husband. I had done his funeral 2 weeks before. COVID had got him, and he had gone to be with the Lord. And Di arrived at church 2 weeks later, and I knew what was in her heart. And she stood and she sang, "Bless the Lord, O my soul. O my soul, bless the Lord." And hearing my sister, probably twice my age, sing her worship to Jesus, just hearing her voice, did something to me in my faith. Just because she pitched up and she put her voice to the family, she put her song into the family, and the family was built up simply by that. So I want to encourage you, regardless of what's going on around you, regardless of how you're feeling, prioritize your family, bring your voice, bring your gifts. Who am I going to welcome? Who am I going to love? When you do that, what you do is you are decreasing and Christ is increasing. Please, I'm not trying to give you these things as legalistic, you must do these things. I'm trying to show you how when you do these things, week after week, simple as they are, in a culture that is increasingly saying, it's all about you, you are becoming more like Jesus. Make sense? Great. There was a series on Netflix. Yeah, even I watched Netflix. I haven't watched the series much. I think I watched the first episode, but I was quite intrigued by the idea of the series. It's a story of a woman who she dies and she goes to the good place. It's very secular, but she goes to the good place. Some of you are nodding because you've seen it. And she gets to the good place, heaven. She looks around at all these people. She realizes she doesn't belong here. Somehow she slipped through the system and she made it in, right? I suddenly caught myself thinking, I don't want to experience heaven like that. When I die and I go to be with Jesus, I want to walk into that place as if I belong, as if I were meant for there. That is the purpose of my life and your life, this side of heaven. Whilst it's taking as many people with you, it's using every day between now and that day when Jesus comes to get you to become more and more fit to belong ultimately with Christ in his family in heaven. And I want to encourage you today, all the way from South Africa, to say, when you wake up tomorrow, give thought to your habits and your practices. If you were to live tomorrow over and over again, did you ever watch that movie Groundhog Day? Hey, you watch that movie Groundhog Day, Bill Murray. Every day the alarm goes off, he wakes up, it's the same day. Tomorrow morning when you wake up, if you were to relive your Monday over and over and over and over again until Jesus comes to get you, would you become more like Christ or more like our culture? Give thought to your habits and practices. Can I pray for us? Can we land? Let's land by coming to the table. Hey, just before I land us, if you're a visitor and you're not sure, we are going to share in communion now, and perhaps you didn't know when you came in to get one of these. I'm going to give you a second to go and collect one if you haven't got one. We've got a couple. Tom over here will bring one to you. Just raise your hand if you haven't yet got one. I guess I'm saying your discipleship of Jesus should be disruptive in your life. It should be disruptive. If our lives mostly look like everybody else's, how are we going to become like Christ? I'll just give you a second to think. I know it's been simple, but I'm trusting it's so relevant to your life as it is to mine. Who are you becoming? How have you structured your day and your week? How have you prioritized? Not out of legalistic I have to, but out of Jesus wants to make me like him. I can't believe it. It's so amazing. When you think of how rotten I was, when you think of how much a sinner I was, that I would get to become like him. Oh, Jesus, thank you. Make me like you. Think about your day. Think about your week. Let's pray. Jesus, I pray right now that you would be here. Holy Spirit, that you would begin to speak to us of the M&Ms we need to take out of our lives and the new ones we need to put in. What are the habits, Lord Jesus? Not in this kind of moralistic way of I have to not, and otherwise Jesus is going to this or this. But actually, Jesus, I want to prioritize you. I want to prioritize becoming like you. I'm so humbled in view of your mercies. I present my life to you as a living sacrifice. I don't want to be conformed to my culture. I want to be shaped into Christ-likeness. Perhaps there's some practices in your life you need to just dial back. Holy Spirit, would you lead us? Perhaps there's some new things we need to say yes to. Holy Spirit, would you lead us? Christ, outside of you, I have no good thing. Jesus, you were that older brother who paid the ultimate price for me. You bled and you died. Your body was broken in order that we who were broken could be made whole. And so, Jesus, we present you today, our bodies afresh. I thank you for your body that was broken, that I may be made whole. I thank you for your blood that was shed, that I would be forgiven and cleansed. I would be redeemed and made new. And Jesus, as we eat of these wafers, this bread, as we drink of this grape juice, we're literally symbolically taking you into ourselves. That's why you chose these beautiful elements that we are eating. We are receiving something into ourselves that remakes us Christ. And we're asking you, even now as we share communion, Jesus, remake us. Not after the shape of our culture, but after the shape of you, Christ. Can we stand together? Is that okay? And let's eat of these elements and drink of this grape juice in order that we're taking Christ into ourselves. And he is remaking us into his likeness. And this is a profound act of grace. Let's do that together.